You know what's wild? Canada might be about to face its third existential crisis, and Ottawa's response plan is basically we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Except the bridge is on fire, the Parti Québécois is holding the matches, and Mark Carney's Liberals are still trying to figure out where they left the fire extinguisher. Welcome back to Canadian Insights, where today we're diving into the political equivalent of showing up to an exam you forgot was happening. Let's talk about Quebec separatism, shall we? So here's the situation. The Parti Québécois is absolutely crushing it in Quebec polls right now. We're talking 2 solid years of momentum that would make any other political party jealous enough to cry into their Tim Hortons. Their leader, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, has made a promise that's about as subtle as a moose in a china shop. His pledge to hold a third referendum on Quebec independence if he wins, and folks, he's looking pretty likely to win that October election. We could be staring down a majority PQ government, which is either exciting or terrifying depending on where you're sitting and how much you enjoy constitutional drama with your morning coffee. Now, you'd think that the federal government, the people whose literal job includes keeping the country together, would have some kind of plan for this. Maybe a strategy document? Some talking points? Perhaps a vague idea of what to do when one of your provinces decides it might want to become its own country? Well, buckle up, because according to Liberal sources speaking to the National Post, the answer is essentially we were working on it but then things got complicated. Here's where it gets even better. Former Quebec Lieutenant Steven Guilbeault, remember him? The guy who was supposed to be the Liberal government's main voice in Quebec? He apparently started sketching out a federal strategy to deal with the PQ threat. And when I say sketching, I mean he was at the should we maybe say something about this phase of planning. We're talking early stages. Like, really early stages. According to sources, he was just beginning to figure out basic questions. Should they have messages? Should they make media appearances? What kind of appearances? These are the kinds of questions you'd expect to be answered before the threat becomes imminent, not while it's knocking at your door asking if you've accepted Quebec sovereignty as your personal truth. But wait, it gets even more entertaining. Guilbeault resigned from his cabinet positions in late November. Just peaced out. Took his early-stage strategy notes and left. His spokesperson said he was unavailable for comment, which is political speak for we're not touching this with a 10-foot hockey stick right now. So the guy who was starting to maybe think about possibly developing a response to Quebec separatism is gone, and his replacement is just getting settled in. Enter Joel Lightbound, the new Quebec lieutenant. Poor guy inherits this mess right as 2026 is about to kick off. He's expected to settle into his role in the new year and take the lead on all things Quebec, including that whole pesky separatism situation. His spokesperson also declined an interview, citing lack of time, which honestly feels like the political equivalent of new phone who dis. But here's the kicker. Sources describe Lightbound as having a more discreet approach. Not confrontational. The kind of guy who won't direct too much attention toward Ottawa. Which sounds great for keeping things calm, but you have to wonder if discretion is really the winning strategy when you're trying to convince an entire province not to leave the country. Let's pause and appreciate the absurdity here for a second. We're potentially months away from a provincial election that could lead to a referendum on whether Canada stays Canada, and the federal strategy is currently in the to-be-determined file somewhere in Ottawa. It's like watching someone calmly organize their desk while their house is filling with smoke. Sure, organization is important, but maybe address the immediate crisis first? Jonathan Collies, who used to be Quebec advisor to Justin Trudeau and now works as a vice president at Macmillan Vantage, pointed out something pretty obvious. Carney's team needs to figure out who their main spokespeople are going to be when it comes to responding to the PQ. Which, again, feels like the kind of thing you'd want sorted out before the situation becomes urgent, not during it. It's strategic planning 101, except apparently that class was optional in Ottawa. Now, let's talk about what this actually means. The PQ hasn't exactly been shy about their intentions. Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon has been crystal clear. Win the election, hold a referendum. It's not a secret agenda. It's not hidden in fine print. It's their main platform. And yet, the federal response has been somewhere between non-existent and we're thinking about it. This isn't some surprise twist in a political thriller. This is a well-advertised event that everyone knows is coming, and yet we're acting like it might just go away if we ignore it long enough. The thing about separatism movements is they don't really respond well to federal governments that seem unprepared or indifferent. You need a strategy. You need messaging. You need people who can articulate why Canadian unity matters without sounding like they're reading from a boring civics textbook. You need to engage with Quebec voters in a way that feels authentic and addresses their actual concerns, not just federal talking points translated into French. This isn't rocket science, but it apparently is challenging enough that we're starting from scratch with months to go. What makes this even more fascinating is the context. This would be Quebec's third referendum. We've been here before. Twice. In 1980 and 1995. The federal government should theoretically have some institutional memory about how to handle this. There should be playbooks. Lessons learned. Historical precedents to draw from. And yet here we are, acting like this is a completely novel situation that no one could have possibly anticipated. The 1995 referendum was terrifyingly close. The no side won by just over 1 percentage point. If you weren't stressed about politics back then, trust me, people were losing sleep over whether Canada would still be Canada the next morning. You'd think that experience would have left a lasting impression on federal strategists. Something like, maybe we should always have a plan ready just in case Quebec separatism becomes a thing again. But apparently not. Apparently, we're comfortable winging it. And look, it's not like the PQ's rise is some random fluke. They've been polling strong for 2 years. That's plenty of time to develop a comprehensive strategy. You could learn a new language in 2 years. You could get a diploma. You could definitely come up with a coherent federal response to a separatist movement. But instead, we've got Guilbeault's preliminary notes and a new Quebec lieutenant who's just getting his feet wet. The irony is almost painful. Mark Carney came in as this fresh face, this person who was going to bring new energy and direction to the Liberal government. And one of the biggest challenges facing Canadian unity right now is being met with what appears to be organizational chaos and a we'll figure it out eventually approach. It's not exactly the decisive leadership you'd hope for when your country's territorial integrity might be on the line. So what happens next? Well, Lightbound has to get up to speed, fast. The Liberals need to figure out their messaging, their spokespeople, their entire approach to countering PQ momentum in Quebec. They need to do this while also running a country and dealing with all the other political fires that are constantly burning. And they need to do it in a way that doesn't accidentally make separatism more appealing by seeming heavy-handed or dismissive of legitimate Quebec concerns. No pressure or anything. The clock is ticking toward October. Every day without a clear federal strategy is a day the PQ gets to dominate the conversation in Quebec without significant federal pushback. And in politics, momentum matters. The narrative matters. Letting the other side define the terms of the debate while you're still figuring out your organizational chart is not exactly a winning formula. Here's the bottom line. Canada might be facing its third referendum on Quebec independence. The Separatist Party is leading in the polls. Their leader has promised to hold that referendum in his first mandate. And the federal government's response strategy is somewhere between underdevelopment and we just hired someone to start thinking about this. It would be funny if it weren't so serious. Actually, who am I kidding? It's still pretty funny. In that dark, we're watching history unfold in the most Canadian way possible kind of way. If you found this video informative, hit that like button. Subscribe to Canadian Insights because we post multiple videos daily covering all the political chaos our beautiful country has to offer. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think the Liberals can pull together a coherent strategy in time? Is Quebec separatism actually a serious threat this time around? And who wants to bet on how many more months it'll take before Ottawa has an actual plan? Share this with anyone who needs to understand just how unprepared we might be for one of the biggest political challenges in recent Canadian history. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one where we'll probably be discussing whatever new political fire has started by then. Stay informed, stay engaged, and maybe keep an eye on Quebec. Things are about to get interesting.